LeQuint Allen out of Syracuse had 500 yards through the air in 2024, but combined it with over 1,000 yards on the ground and 20 touchdowns. If you like a well-rounded back, this might just be the guy for you, but Allen really thrives in the receiving game. However, there are definitely some weaknesses to his game, and he's currently projected as a day 3 pick. If you like this content, please consider liking and subscribing. But let's take a little bit of a deep dive into one of the better receiving backs in this class. The first thing you notice about Allen when you watch his tape is the ability in the receiving game. In terms of hands, I think he has some of the best in the draft, and this showed throughout his 2024 season with over 500 yards through the air on 64 receptions and 4 receiving touchdowns. He averaged just after 8 yards per reception, which was one of the highest figures on any back in college football who had over 50 or so receptions. The other thing about him is that I do think he is a relatively fluid route runner. He's definitely more of a threat on screens and swing passes, but he has the ability to run a slightly varied route tree out of the backfield. Not particularly someone that I would be willing to actually push out wide and line up as a receiver, but as a threat out of the backfield, someone that is very strong. The other thing that I noticed about him is a relatively good initial burst, and this is combined with a really patient running style. So it is someone who sets blocks up in front of them and then hits the hole relatively quickly. But I keep using qualifiers there because I don't think he has elite burst. I think it's just good. The area of his athleticism that I think is better than good is lateral agility. I think he does have a good ability to jump cut and to be able to switch and change direction. So the lateral burst I think is quite good. The other area which I think is really impressive for him is the tackle breaking. But this particularly comes in the red zone, as you'll have actually seen in some of the clips at the beginning of this video. He plays with a very high motor, which means that he basically just doesn't let himself get brought down. The play for Allen is never over until he says it's over, which is a really strong ability to see. And he definitely had a nose for the end zone with 16 touchdowns on the ground in 2024 alone. I also think he is an elite pass protector, but this is less to do with his actual ability as a pass protector in terms of his technique, but more in terms of his ability to identify blitzes. And I think this is something which he does like a veteran back already. The way in which he is able to spot where the pressure is coming and where he is needed as an additional sixth blocker is incredibly impressive. So if Allen is going to work more as a third down back because of his receiving ability, this is really going to help him coming into the league. One of the main downsides of Allen's game is that I really think he lacks long speed and initial acceleration. I think he is a relatively average, even if slightly below par athlete, and I think this is something which can potentially be a problem for him. You don't really see too many chunk plays in Allen's game on his film. I think that long speed isn't just not elite, I think it's just not particularly there. I also spoke about the initial burst when hitting a hole, but I do think it takes him a while to get up to that top speed. So I think the acceleration and the long speed are real problem areas for him. I also think he plays way too upright. It makes him relatively easy to bring down, and it's why you see him in areas where he is trying to maintain his contact balance through essentially raw aggression, rather than because he is set up well to let tacklers bounce off him and make him a hard object to actually get around. But I think he just plays way too upright in his pads, and this is something he's going to have to work on when the physicality level is even higher in the NFL. I do think he lacks size, but I think play strength problems show up, particularly when he's running between the tackles. I think it's just something that he goes down way too easily. In the red zone, he does have an ability to break tackles, but you don't really see it too much in the rest of his game. The main issue that I see with Allen is that I don't think he's someone who is able to create himself. And this is whether he's out in space, this is whether he has to hit the edge and bounce a play outside, and this is whether he is receiving a ball like a screen or a swing pass when a play is potentially broken down. I think he is someone that can work to what's schemed up for him and do a good job. But because of his problems with athleticism and his problems with the ability to actually take contact, I think this is someone that really struggles to actually forge their own path, which again isn't going to be a huge issue. There are lots of backs that can't do that, but it just limits that elite level upside when your vision and your ability to break tackles and gain yards after contact or after the catch just aren't really going to be great in the big leagues. The playstyle comparison for me for Allen is Rashad White, and I think this is a reasonably strong one. They are a similar size, they are much better in the receiving game, they do have a nose for the end zone, and Rashad White produced really well in his first season in Tampa, or actually in year 2 as well, when he was the bell cow. But the moment a more explosive back came into town with Bucky Irving, suddenly he wasn't able to maintain that workload. And this is kind of where I see Allen fitting in. I think he'll be a reliable third down back. I think he's also someone that you can use as a bell cow if you don't have a better option, but the moment you get some juice in that backfield, he is suddenly going to be relegated to just a 1B or just a third down back in the same way that White was. In terms of projected draft value, he's currently looking at going at day 3. There are so many other exciting backs in this class that I would take over Allen, and I think teams will look to do the same thing just because that explosivity and acceleration isn't really there in the same way that a lot of the other backs are. And yeah, he is good in the receiving game, but I think you can probably find someone else on day 2 who is as good in the receiving game and a better rusher and faster and more explosive. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go quite late in the draft. In terms of draft value, I think anywhere in the third is fine, probably towards the back of the third. I'm probably going to have him ranked a little bit later, just because there's a fair amount of backs in this class that I would prefer to him, but I wouldn't hate anyone wanting to take him at that time just because of the receiving upside and the fact that I think he can be a bell cow in the NFL if he goes to a situation that needs it. I just don't think he has the same upside as a lot of other more explosive backs in this class. Let me know down in the comments below if Allen is your favourite sleeper in this class. I have seen his name all over Twitter, so I wanted to watch and get a little bit of a view for myself. And while you are there, like this video and subscribe and check out all of the other rookie profiles available on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.